to talk about a guttural intransigence becomes necessary if what you're doing is streaming cognition that's indicative of malparenting. And in the dismissal that comes with a kind of bashwalk of uncertainty comes the resilience that everybody who wants to see two people find a chrysanthemum thinks of as the apparatus of compartmentalization. And sometimes to analyze these delinquencies becomes a kind of miasmic disinfrequentization, and you can look at a control panel that charts the oscillations between decisiveness and interdimensionality, and in some ways it corroborates your septum. And to do this, to find an ant whistle that might propose to poppies or chrysanthemums, indicates the divagations that can be made in the times in which our insistences are francissimo. And some people say, well, I think that there's plenty of opportunity for the doldrums when you have 9 or 10 equivalencies between a waterborne creature and an airborne surface. And if you say that surfaces that can absorb water are more independent and foster more sense of purpose than surfaces that have a corrugation or in some way repel the liquid or the viscosity that is surfaced upon them, we can have that kind of assertion in our array of dismembermentizations that come when we think, oh, my cognition becomes a body, and what if that body is dismembered? What if the times in which we think merriment is warranted are actually the times in which there must be more consideration made for consideration itself? And what do we take in the ebb and flow of this? Are we carried forward by what might be the tsunamis of disrespect that you can find in a Japanese handlebar? And you say, well, perhaps the other option is to be, dragged backward into the kind of sandhill or the, divot that's made by an antlion when it draws its prey into its mighty pincers. And of course we can say these things are mighty if we are at that scale. And are there larger scales? Because you could say that a head of a corporation might assert, I am no antlion. I cannot, or I am not prey for that kind of beast. But everything is prey for some other creature, even if you can say the corpse of the apex predator is prey for the ground. And you can say that if you look at the ground very, very much sped up, it is eating us all. It is a giant maw upon which we meander. And the cognitions that happen to us, the importances that we fulminate in between the period in which we emerge and the period in which we are disemerged, finds us with the, again, recollection of dismemberment. And are these inherited? Are these genetic? Can we say, I thought that my mind was frankincense, but it was actually myrrhed? And we can say, oh, I find these things, a nice way to put butter on the foliage. And some people would say, sure, if I want my boots to be full of shellac, that's the kind of thing I would retrospect. And to the kind of chalice-born frisson that's necessary for interdimensionality retrogression is a cacophony, and it's a cacophony of different kinds of septic tanks. And to live inside a septic tank is not the same as being a hermit that likes disemboweling pigeons. it can be the same. You could live inside a septic tank and disembowel pigeons, but also you could live inside a septic tank and read Proust. And those differences may be substantial in the end. We may find that those whom we idolize are actually more septic than those who we disparage. And to call disparage a kind of temperamental cauliflower that creates a possibly edible and yet repugnant disaffiliation in the crenulalities of its foliage is to say, you know, I would like my salad dressing to be bitter as opposed to corporeal. And the non-corporation, or you could say the infungibility of salad dressing that contains a little too much paprika is a central matter of contention between the states that border on philosophies. And some people say an assertive philosophy is better than a turnip made of cellophane, and some people say that an intermittent philosophy, a staccato philosophization, a philosophization that's deep, 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 like, you know, morality, respect, self-determination, in between the staccatizations, in between those bursts of certainty, is a kind of featherbed of uncertainty. Sometimes to relax into the soft cushion of not knowing is in and of itself the respite that is required from all of this idolization of those who can point in a certain direction and say, there stands the turret. There stands the ferrets that are manning the turret and the tarantulas that prey upon them. And if you like that kind of disposition and you take it upon yourself to see the contrariwise discontrarian, and what you want in the end is to collateralize the notary and say to the notary, I have a stamp made of waffles, and boom, 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 everything that I stamp it upon is waffled, and I have just too many internecine assertivenesses that have been waffled, and to put the stamp of waffafiliation upon any number of stances that could be likened to modern dance, and the flash of a nuclear blast that might encode the shadows of nuclear dancing upon a wall, and the generations that might then spy those silhouettes and see them either as a kind of cave painting from a primitive society, or might interpret the various gestures as a language. And if someone came to our era and had previously thought that the strange conformations, the strange contortions of modern dance were in fact the way that we primarily communicated, they would be flummoxed by Xerox machines. They would say, the only way I know to concur is to wrap my arm backward around my head and peripetize my misery. And nobody wants that, least of all me. Thank you for your attentiveness and your delays. And if I may appropriate the respectfulness of somebody higher up in the rankings of baronial countrymen, you're the kind of fledgling that doesn't come out in the wash. Thanks again. Comments welcome.